Hi, everyone. I'm James Garbutt.
And I'm Denny Dumas.
And this is the Garbutt Dumas Real Estate Podcast.
Jamie, I saw a article floating around Facebook this week, and the headline on it was local realtor, I'll explain in a second, but local realtor predicts 40% drop in Greater Vancouver over the coming year. And so you click on the article and read through it a little bit. This guy, I think, is like a old school realtor in like Sunshine Coast or something like that. So he's never sold a property in Greater Vancouver. And he went on records making this like super bold statement. And it was, I don't know, it's floating around Facebook, and it was pretty funny to see Greater Vancouver realtors just sharing and commenting like how ridiculous this is.
That sounds like clickbait.
100%.
But to defend him, I imagine a lot on the Sunshine Coast has gone from 100,000 to say 180 or 150 in this dynamic. So 40% of that, brings it back down if it's...
I was talking to a client yesterday that is thinking about leaving the Lower Mainland and going to Gibson's. And they've been looking over there with a realtor, and a livable home for a family in a good neighborhood is about $800K right now.
In Gibson's.
Yeah.
That's not far away. That's a nice ferry ride too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you're saying like newer homes are in kind of the 1.2 range.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that seems pretty high for a ferry ride.
The island's not much cheaper. Victoria is pretty expensive.
Victoria's
North Island you get a little cheaper.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever been busier in the Sunshine Coast or Gulf Islands. I think they're all shocked. I have a friend that bought up in Pender Harbor in the Sunshine Coast, and this is out of our wheelhouse, by the way. We are far from Sunshine Coast experts, but when I was looking at lots, inquiring about properties that he was interested in, these places had a huge listing history. Like some of them had been on and off the market for 10 years, and prices they were getting in the early 2000s weren't far off, or 2005 didn't seem far off of today's prices.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, it's kind of like that recreation property thing, but where, I have another friend whose parents bought in Sun Peaks, and 20 years later they sold it for less than they paid. So sometimes you get these recreation properties that get a little bit inflated when they're first developed or first serviced the streets in the neighborhood, and then it's just a ghost town for 10 years. But I would like to think, though, in this pandemic world moving forward, I don't see the Gulf Islands or Sunshine Coast just drying up. I think people are genuinely moving for lifestyle, not buying recreation properties.
Totally.
And that's I think a key difference there.
Imagine how different would our business be and the advice that you give people in listing appointments if all the comps in the neighborhood have been on the market for 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
What's your confidence level like going into that listing appointment?
Well, the lot across the street's been on and off for 10 years. We should probably price it less. Have a chance.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but there's so many beautiful places out there to live. And, you go down this wormhole of, oh my God, say, $2 million gets you in East Van versus $2 million on Salt Spring Island. You get a vineyard with a waterfront estate.
Totally. Yeah. I had a friend, a past friend, just buy kind of like a resort Airbnb type thing on, I think in Seashell. I think it was on one of those little islands. Anyway,
Seashell's in the
No, I know. I can't remember what it was. Pender Island, one of those smaller islands. Anyway. He's doing some updates right now, so I'm kind of following along on Instagram, and then he's going to open it as like a resort type thing. There's 3 or 4 accommodations on this piece of property with a cool view. That's a pretty cool lifestyle to go to.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Shall we, we could just make this a Seashells and Gibson. Sunshine Coast podcast.
Yeah. Carl, let's put this at the end so that we captivate.
Okay, let's get into Greater Vancouver.
Market update. Holy listings, Batman. Yeah. I had to get that out, Denny, because I didn't think you were going to say it.
You really wanted to say that. Jamie comes into the podcast and says, hey, can we call it this?
Holy listings, Batman.
What? Okay. In the last couple weeks, I've had multiple realtors come through showings and ask me what's happening The market's slowing down. Oh my God. And my response to them is, this is the spring. Like the spring often kind of goes through these little waves of a lot of inventory in a week, and a listing that you thought should get 5 offers and sell $200K above your listing price just falls flat because there is 9 or 15 other listings that are pretty similar in a really close proximity. To me, I think we're kind of into that market now of there's going to be a lot of inventory moving forward for the next 3 or 4 months. Every week, there's probably going to be more and more. And picking a list price is as important as ever right now.
Yeah, it's not, 2 months ago, you could get away with listing a place for $1 and let the market take it wherever it's going to go. Now that intentionally planning for a bidding war and letting the market save you is a risky choice. And I guess to kind of talk about the market shift that we're seeing, it's the last 30 days we've seen an abrupt shift, and it's purely just due to more listings being available. And we're coming off of months of very few listings being available. Yeah. So it's a very polar opposite. I mean, in January, February, every listing that came on the market, everyone's eyes were on it. We could all talk about, oh, did you see this one this week? And we were all talking about the same house. And now it feels like maybe what was like in 1 week, we're seeing as many listings as we saw in 3 weeks before. Totally. To give you a rough idea there. But the overall thing is that buyers are getting more spread out, and buyers are getting a little more, I hope they're taking it as relief and optimism. They have a little more time to breathe. They are more likely to get subjects in an offer, and more likely, just likely to encounter less competition. That doesn't mean that the market is shifting significantly for the worst. Yeah. It just means that the busy street house with the weird layout may not get multiple offers, but the house on the quiet street in the good neighborhood is still getting a ton of interest. And I haven't seen a pullback on prices for those top tier caliber homes. Mm-hmm. It's really the lower tier homes that might get a slight pullback or correction.
It's funny. I had a text from a client yesterday that said, hey, did you see that one that came up on Garbutt? And my response to him was, which one on Garbutt? Because there was multiple on that street. Like it just is what it is. This is the spring. This is when a lot of people kind of gear up to do this big move, downsize, upsize, whatever it may be. And this is a busy time of year, most years. And there's going to be more inventory.
We're talking, just to kind of timestamp this, it's April 7th. It's after the Easter long, after spring break. Arguably this week, next week, the week after that are some huge listing weeks, because a lot of people wait till spring break's over and get their homes ready. And when the gardens come in, they list. Mm-hmm. So just naturally in most Aprils, we see a flood of listings. And then depending on those people buying and selling, it just causes more activity in May and June. Yeah. And it starts to teeter off in July. Yeah. And come mid-July, in normal seasonal times, that's where we start noticing the slowdown if it happens. Yeah. I mean, every market's different, and it really comes down to, we'll see what the mojo of this year is, but July is kind of that month that tells us where the fall's headed. Yeah. And right now we're in April, we expected more listings to come, but it was just such an abrupt change in 30 days that for me, I felt like it happened a little, what we're seeing now, I thought it might be like more of a May, June or June, July thing. Yeah. I just thought there was more buyers than demand that was going to keep the inventory very tight for a little longer. So I'm curious to see what the next 60 days bring, but I don't think it's going to be doomsday.
No. This is my kind of snapshot assessment is the market for, let's talk single family specifically. The market for single family has gone up 25%-ish, let's say 20% conservatively, 25%-ish, from December to March, let's say. So in a 4-month window, that is outrageous. It is unsustainable. And what I think is going to happen this spring is just we've kind of reached this plateau level, and I think it's just going to kind of go flat for the next 3 or 4 months. I think activity is going to continue. Like for us, last week we listed three newest single family homes, and each of them was very active. One of them didn't get as much attention as it would have maybe 30 days ago, and didn't get the offers that it would have 30 days ago, but the activity level was busy. Like the one on 5th got 30 showings in the first week. The one on 3rd got 27 in the first week. And then the Sapperton house got 15. So like comparatively to a, let's say an average spring market, this is still busier than that.
Yeah, no, we had these were million to 1.5 price points, very active price points, but particularly the house that was listed under $1 million. That I saw a lot of touch bases come through on that one. But you're referencing, just to kind of highlight here, we have an example of a home that you just sold, and we sold a home on the same street a couple months ago. So we have this case comparison of 2 house sales on the same street in New Westminster, and overall the activity was there, but it was easier. We got more offers a few months ago, and we have an example of a side-by-side comparison, almost an apples-to-apples comparison of the change in offers received on 2 similar homes. Yeah,
there's a little bit of updated neighborhood information that may have hurt the second one a little bit, but it's like, I think the example shows that 30, 45 days ago, buyers were very willing to overlook some negatives, very willing to compromise on a few things. And now it just seems like buyers are understanding that we've hit this spring push, and there's going to be a lot of inventory every week. And there's going to be, instead of 1 or 2 homes a week in January, February hitting the market that they were interested in, now there's 12.
Yeah.
So they can be a little bit picky again. And if there are things like neighborhood activity, or maybe this one doesn't have a suite, or maybe the bedroom situation is a little weird because it's got 1 up and 2 on the main floor, or whatever, they're being a little bit more picky. And that busy street home, I think this spring is going to need to be slightly conservative on market value, versus in January, February, it probably would have flown because there's nothing else.
Yeah. I think that's the shift in mindset from a lot of buyers is perfectly logical. Like a month ago or 2 months ago, if you're a buyer and you were experiencing January, February, or you've been looking since December, you witnessed a lot of gain happen in front of your eyes. And the concern there is if you're sitting late February after 20% gain of a house that you're looking at, the concern is that it's going to go another 20%. And so you're more willing to sacrifice on what you buy if you're at the limit of your budget and you want to get a house before you can't. But the data over the last 30 days, seeing the listings flood in, doesn't mean that prices are going to backtrack, in my opinion. But it does mean that I don't think I think the craziness is over in the short term. And like you said, I think it's going to be more of a leveled out, up and down, situational luck of the week.
Yeah.
And what that means is just buyers can be a little more selective, but if the house ticks all the boxes on the quiet street, don't expect it to go under the radar. Don't expect it to sell for a lower price than the last one. Give it a good run and take advantage of the cheap mortgage rates and cheap bank money while you can.
I don't think we're going to see, there might be, few and far between one-offs, but I don't think we're going to see those big lucky sales again for the next few months at least, while there's more inventory.
There could be exceptions, right?
There'll be exceptions on like that prime street in one of the best neighborhoods in that city or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that like average 50s bungalow that has a kitchen update that should probably be worth 1.3 is not going to get 1.5 again. And I'm talking specifically about Sapperton and New West, there was 2 or 3 that sold $150,000 higher than they would today.
Yeah.
Like if they came back, they would not get that number again.
Whenever a market has an abrupt, crazy moment, you always remember the crazy sales in that moment. Yeah. I remember a house sold in Upper Deer Lake, like just a 1950s post-war bungalow. And I probably used this example before, so this is going to be a repeat. But in I want to call it 2010, it sold for $680, and then in 2016, it sold for $198. Like it was a triple. Like it tripled in value over a period of 6 years or something like that. So there is always those moments. And then now it would be worth maybe 1.5, 1.6. So it's come off a lot since that. It was like the craziest sale of that crazy moment. And they haven't seen that value yet. So, when Denny mentioned that house values are up 20%, 25%, in Port Moody, North Van, Maple Ridge, Langley, Fraser Valley, a lot of areas, that's valid. It's and above the peak pricing. But areas before the foreign tax came in, like Burnaby, Richmond, Vancouver West, and particularly like this example's Deer Lake area, Burnaby, they got very inflated in 2016, and they're not close to those price levels yet. Like there was land value in Buckingham Heights going for $3 million, and that's for the land, and then they'd tear down the house. That's not here again. You know,
is that low twos right now? What is that?
Probably low twos. Yeah. So it's 30% off, 20% off, the craziest sales of 2016. But yeah, I think the market for detached, I think there are still lucky examples. When I look at areas like Deep Cove, for example, that's one of the exceptions where it's still, I don't think that's going to cool off anytime soon. If I'm looking at where there's potentially value that may go up in price over the coming months, I think maybe luxury. Luxury, never higher end homes or particularly higher end suburb homes, haven't really reaped the rewards of the market yet. There's a lot of mid twos plus Tri-City homes that are well under their replacement value that haven't hit their stride. So I think there are opportunities there for buyers in those higher price points. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd buy a lot right now when I look at what's happening unless you build that rare product. But if I look at what's happening for newer homes in, say, Tri-Cities, it would be hard to justify buying a lot and building a house when you can buy a 5-year-old home for well under what that would cost.
That stuff is starting to pick up. And in terms of activity, I'm not really seeing prices climb or be at what they were for like peak 2017, maybe for luxury Coquitlam, let's say. But that stuff is moving a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Like I've seen a couple.
And I imagine it will month over month too. Because keep in mind, the buyers for 2.5 are usually selling a 1.5.
Exactly.
So they're selling those right now to upgrade. Yeah.
One of the cool things about this market, and it keeps in perspective, like when you've been in this industry for, let's say, a decade, you feel like you know the trends and you know what's going to happen. And this year has been so different, and it's kind of fun, and it almost resets you a little bit to alter your opinion of things and say, okay, I'm not going to predict what's going to go on. I'm just going to assess every single day because it's changing so quickly. Like this, it's a bit of a roller coaster the last 6 months, but single family was on fire. Like busier than 2016. Anything was getting 40, 60, 80 showings in, like East Van is very busy too, but a lot of the suburbs were just crazy. That's starting to slow, and like as we've kind of talked about, but it moved so quickly into strata, and I've never seen that before because 2016 was like the year of the house, I call it. Single family went up 30%-ish, depending on neighborhood. But it took about 18 months for strata to start that snowball, and then strata went on a big run for 12 to 18 months. This year, it was like a 2-month window. It was like single family starts getting crazy in November, December. Townhouses start getting crazy in January, and condos are super busy again right now. Yeah. And it depends a lot on the neighborhood. Yeah. Like I was in a multiple offer situation yesterday with a buyer in Port Moody. That was a pretty standard 2-bedroom and den condo in a pretty good building, good location, but it sold probably, sale price was $750, probably sold $75,000. So what's that? A little over 10% higher than it would have 6 months ago. So I guess the transition is something we've never seen before of like how quickly it's jumped product. And maybe it's availability, or maybe it's like price points. Maybe single family just got too out of reach for a lot of people. And so they just went down the ladder to townhouses, and that townhouse jumped $100,000 in 2 months. And then people are going down the ladder again. I don't know. It feels like there's a little bit of FOMO happening too, where people feel like if they don't buy something this spring, maybe this run keeps going. Like maybe they're just going to be priced out of all the options. Yeah.
I think the condo market is probably very area specific, and maybe you've been a little more involved in the last 30 days than I have. I get the sense that, say, a New West SkyTrain condo on Carnarvon is probably a little bit of a soft product with what's going on in Gastown. I mean, I imagine areas of Gastown and Vancouver proper are still off of what they've experienced before. I'm very curious to see how like Yaletown bounces back and those, like the Woodwards buildings and seeing what they do. But I imagine those, I would consider those probably opportunities right now.
We haven't done much in like luxury downtown. And when I say luxury, it's probably like 2 million plus for condos or higher, maybe 3 million plus downtown. But I've seen a lot in the like entry level price point in Yaletown and Olympic Village, and it is at peak pricing. It is busier than I've ever seen it.
Right now. Oh, what shifted?
I saw
it was different like 90 days ago. That was a different story.
Seriously. It's really just been in the last 30 to 45 days. There was a Yaletown condo that I went to look at that got 9 offers and sold, I think it was listed at $799. I thought it was worth about $850 and it sold $890. And that was far and above the most recent comp that was more updated than this. This one was like original condition. Had a great view of the water in Yaletown, but small 1-bedroom condo.
Well, I imagine it's case by case there. I haven't looked honestly, I haven't looked in the last 30 days, but I do remember looking and there was buildings on Rollston that comes to mind, and Cole Harbour when I was looking there that was off. Like it was off good 10, 20% from 2017 prices, not from last year prices. Yeah. But we have a listing in Kits, and based on the activity and pending offer we have on it, I'd say Kitsilano's at peak pricing. It's pretty active out there. And that makes sense, in a pandemic world, you want to have close access to that beach. You need some outdoor amenities.
Olympic Village, I've been in a lot recently too, and there's one in Den that sold last summer for $750, and an identical unit sold 2 weeks ago for $850.
Okay, summer. There you go. 9 months
last summer, totally.
Yeah,
last summer was like
it was a little bit
a dead period for condos, but it has changed really quickly.
Well, part of this podcast, Danny, is give live news without the clickbait. so how about to kind of check, what I did before this morning was just look at the last 30 days of sales for some detached areas, just because, we have a lot of homes that we're selling right now, and we have some more coming. And I thought it'd be good to give some realistic, stats on what's actually selling and what that gets you. So, I looked at more towards the hotter parts of town. So North Vancouver, for example, 110 sales of detached homes in the last 30 days. 86 of those 110 sold for full price or above. So it's basically 80% of the listings getting above whether, asking or full. The median price was 1912, which I think is a record median price for North Van. I think North Van's 19 was the median price out of that 110 sample. And that basically gets you like a 2,800 4-bedroom house in like Lynn Valley. That's dated or partially renoed, but in decent condition, but don't expect it to be new and fancy. If it was fully renoed and new and fancy, it might be 2.1 or 2.2. But a 2,800 square foot 40, 50-year-old home on an 8,000 square foot lot in Lynn Valley, or you take a 2,800 square foot on a 4,000 square foot lot in maybe mid or upper Lonsdale or off Lonsdale, but we're not talking about a fully renovated home. That's what 19 is in North Van right now.
That's got to be peak pricing.
Oh yeah. A lot of the wealth in Vancouver proper is going to the North Shore if they want to get more space in a house. So, the people live in condos, expensive condos and townhouses, professionals that don't have to be as close to the office anymore. I just think by the numbers, they're more likely to choose North Shore as the option.
Yeah.
Port Moody, last 30 days, 30 sales, 22 of them were full price or above. Median price in Port Moody was 1,515 out of those 30 sales, and that would get you about a 2,500 square foot house on an 8,000 square foot lot. That is similar to the Lynn Valley house. I'd say arguably based on looking at the Lynn Valley example for 19 was 2,800 square feet. And if I took apples to oranges in Port Moody at 1.5, it would just be a smaller version of that home.
Yeah.
I think Port Moody is about 10% discounted from North Vancouver approximately right now, with a few exceptions. Like North Vancouver has some really expensive neighborhoods, but it's about 10% off apples to apples, give or take. New West, 35 sales last 30 days. 29 of them were full price or above. New West did pretty good. These are the listings that sold, and the median price in New West was 1,418, $100,000 less than Port Moody. Walnut Grove, I looked at as well. 21 sales in the last 30 days. 80% of them, similar stat, were full price or above. And the median price in Walnut Grove was 1,282. And that gets you mid 2,000 square foot, 30-year-old home, vinyl siding, Walnut Grove special.
that is probably well above peak pricing there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's
1,200?
that's no. Yeah, we're in record pricing for Walnut Grove. Absolutely. But I guess what this is telling me is that these are all, well, other than, I didn't anticipate New West to have, because it's an inner city suburb, but I anticipated North Van, Port Moody, and Walnut Grove to have strong statistics. But this just tells me that out of the listings that are selling in the last 30 days, 80% of them are getting their price or more. I imagine over the next 30 days, that would probably be reduced. If I were to take a stab at it, I'd say 70%, maybe 65, but it's still going to be a strong number.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the more you know, Denny.
Stats guy, Jamie. So one of the things I kind of want to, yes, I think it's important to share what is going on, but then also kind of look at it from a perspective of how does this affect consumers and what challenges does it bring for people that are thinking of making a move this spring? So a couple things. One, and for realtors too, I mean, evaluating properties right now is a total moving target. And if we're meeting with someone that is thinking of selling this spring and they're 30 days out, you cannot give them an accurate number. Like you can say, if you were to list today, I think this is the range of list price, but that could change next week. And by June 1st, when you're planning to list, that's a month and a half away, it's going to be different. So it needs to be reevaluated. But I think understanding as a consumer that the number is changing weekly. And I guess the last 6 months has been such a roller coaster. The next 3, I think, are going to be a little bit more plateaued, flat, that will be slightly more predictable. But it's like Jamie has this line all the time in listing appointments that he says, it's a moving target. It's a moving target. And we're trying to find we're trying to hit the target, but like it's changing all the time.
Yeah, you know, we're evaluating properties all the time. I mean, long story short, we give a range, acknowledge, big, bold. The market is changing a lot. You can say it's a moving target, or you can say my other line is the next 30 days is going to tell us a lot more about the value of your home. So let's have this conversation again next month. Yeah. But essentially, I love using that line that when the data is all over the place and there's a short, a 2-month sample period of new change, the next 30 days really matter. Yeah. And if you're not listing for, another month or two, here's the range of possibilities today, but it's going to be a more accurate guess. And I say guess in a month. Yeah. We're guessing. I would like to say educated guess. Sorry, I don't mean to undermine your guesses, Denny, but it's when we are in the market, we're involved in it every week, and we continue weekly to have these surprise conversations. Could you believe what this house got? Can you believe what that one did? We're doing it every week. Yeah. So we see the sales, we show the properties, we're in it, and we continue to be surprised.
Totally. Yeah. The other thing I want consumers to be aware of, and it was a pretty easy decision early in the year, December, January, February, to buy first, then list your place, sell it in 7 days. It's going to get multiple offers. It's going to sell well above. It's much more risky now. And I think moving forward for the next 3 months, you really need to be cautious, I think, about that transition. And there's been a few circumstances in the last few weeks even where our clients have bought first, listed their homes at what we thought was slightly conservative numbers, didn't get offers week 1, and then there's a bit of panic mode, right? So it seems in the last, let's say 30 days-ish, that a lot more listings compared to early in the year are listing around market value, right? A home that's worth 1.3 is not listing at $999 anymore. We've had enough data to show that, okay, this neighborhood is now demanding 1.3, and most of the listings coming up in that neighborhood are listing at 1,299, at that range. So it's important to understand as a seller that if you're listing around market value, the frenzy typically goes away, right? You're just cutting out a lot. Remember our conversations and our podcast about multiple offers early in the year? A lot of listings are listing at last year's prices. Let's say they get 20 offers. 18 of those offers are in and around the list price. So they're really not even close to competing for the market value of this home. If you're listing at market value, you're cutting out those 18 people, right? So that frenzy is kind of going away based on strategy a little bit and based on inventory. So I think it's important to have a pretty detailed conversation with very specific to the transition that you as a consumer are trying to do this year. But the buy first in some circumstances may be a bit risky this spring.
Well, you have to be pretty, I mean, it's case by case, obviously. Totally. And if you are buying first, there may be an argument to, say you're upgrading house to house and so you're going from a $1.1 million or $1.2 million home to a $1.8 million home. Yeah, there might be an argument to price your home at 1.1 if you're stretching yourself to buy that 1.8 and you need an offer quickly and you need it. And it's the burden is that nowadays you might end up with 1.1 and you might not get that 1.2. Whereas before it was more predictable that the market was going to take it away. We're having this podcast in April. If there's any month where it may make sense to sell first then buy, it's April or it's May. And the reason why I say that is if you're ever going to sell first then buy, and this is let's ignore investment and what strategically is the right way for, to maximize your return, but this is a lifestyle move. The reason why I say sell first then buy right now is because you'll be in a buying position when there's the best selection available. And so if you know how much you have to work with by May 1st, you're going to be in a buying position and shopping around in May and June when historically that's when the best supply is available. So if you ever put yourself out there to be homeless, now's the time to do it.
Totally.
Yeah. Denny, anything else to add on this one? I mean, we're going to talk about list price strategies soon. So I don't want to go too deep on that, but no, I'm excited to see what the next 60 days bring, what the month ahead is. Because
want to make a prediction?
Yeah, go for it. You go first. Specific.
All right. So my broad prediction, and I'll narrow it down a little bit, but my broad prediction is we are hitting a plateau. And I think for the spring, it's going to be very active. Like a new listing priced correctly in a good neighborhood is going to still get 20 to 30 showings in the first week, which is busy, and may or may not sell in the first week. But I think those price points are just kind of flatlining. So I think as a seller, you should be cautious about underlisting a property because, as Jamie just said, it may not get that frenzy bidding war. So pricing near market value is probably the right move. I would say in 3 months from now, we look back at those stats that you just read out, and I expect you to bring them to a podcast in 3 months.
They're in my book.
And those average sale prices or those median sale prices for the neighborhoods that you just talked about are within 3% of what that is. And there's going to be a little bit of fluctuation based on how much inventory there is in the next couple months. And it could go down slightly, but I don't see a big drop off this spring. I think activity and demand is still too strong. It's just getting spread out a little bit with how much inventory there is.
Yeah, it's hard to have, the prediction basically in a way is that the market's going to be similar to it is right this very moment.
Yeah.
I think that the big difference maybe by summer or end of summer is that we'll see more stories and experiences of higher end sales. I think we're going to see more activity in higher end sales. And I really, I'm more curious to see what happens in that downtown core Vancouver condo market. But I guess if I were to make a prediction, and this is a wild guess, I just have a feeling that the government's going to introduce something between now and the end of summer that's going to be some sort of way to check the market. And if I were to guess that, I'm going to take a wild stab that they're going to come up with something that's going to hit the higher end properties more than the lower end properties. So whether that's some sort of tax. I think we're going to have a new tax. And that's a pretty broad one. But let's say by, August? They don't usually wait for the market to naturally cool, which it's going to happen, I think, as we go into summer.
Man.
I think we might see a new tax in the next, and I hope we don't.
It's an interesting comment because it seems like every single time the local government, the provincial government has brought in a new tax or some way to slow the market, it's already slowed.
Yeah.
Like 2016, it already flatlined and it was like just kind of cruising along like flat for 2 months. And then they're like, boom, foreign buyer tax. Screw you guys.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense, their timing. And honestly, it's a great comment. You might be the most intelligent person I've ever met. Because it feels like that. It feels like later 2016, right? It
We're
feels
just
like
waiting for that news one day.
Totally.
You know, we're not going to give any warning. We're just going to wake up and we're going to have some news, and we're like, oh, geez, are these X house listings are now worth $100,000 less because of it?
Totally.
You know,
it feels a bit like that, right? It's just happening earlier in the year, where 2016 was crazy bidding wars for 6 months, and then June, July just kind of like flatlined, and there was more inventory, and those crazy sale prices just weren't happening. They were kind of selling at or just below what had just sold in their neighborhood, and it had already kind of cooled down. And then this foreign buyer tax comes in. And this year, it seems like it's just happened a little quicker in the year. And it's April now, and I feel like it's going to flatline for the next 3 months. So, well, wouldn't be surprised.
This is going to affect the chance of success of my prediction, but I imagine these government officials are listening to our podcast.
Man.
And if so, we don't need another tax. The market's naturally going to calm itself down. We don't need another tax. Let the market go with the flow. A lot of people are moving because of lifestyle in this new world. And, the interest rates, I mean, if anything, deal with that, not a new tax.
The taxes just keep adding terms to our contracts too. So now there's so many ridiculous terms, and like, do you warrant that there is no speculation tax? Do you warrant that there is no vacancy tax? Do you warrant that you're a Canadian citizen? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. It's crazy. Anyway.
Right. This was a good market update. Let's see what happens in the future.